Welcome back, everybody, to episode 34 of the Clean Kitchen podcast. And today, we're going to reel it back a little bit. We've covered so many topics on this podcast, but like I said, we're going to take it back and we're going to get back to the basics. We are going to give you 5 rules in this podcast episode. Basically, how to shop the grocery store, how to go to the grocery store and shop for healthy products. So let's kick it off, Kevin.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So we got 5 rules today that we're going to go through. Let's start with rule number 1, Kyle. What is the first rule that you follow when you're shopping at the grocery store?
Yeah, if you've been following me, you know one of the first things I look for when I am turning over the package and looking at the ingredient list, one of the first things I look for is if that product contains vegetable oils. So if it does, that's an automatic put back for me. There's one exception to that rule, I guess, which we'll get to in a second. But for the most part, if you see these vegetable oils, and when I say vegetable oil, I mean soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower, safflower oil, all of these are considered vegetable oils. And the reason I don't recommend them is because they are comprised primarily of polyunsaturated fats. And these polyunsaturated fats are very unstable and they break down very easily. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit more right now, because the way these oils are processed, they go through so many different steps. They're heated to super high temperatures. They're exposed to high pressure. They're exposed to different bleaching agents. And once these oils come out the other side, they are so toxic because they've been exposed to all of these things. And it literally alters the actual molecule in these oils and creates a wide variety of toxins that are terrible for us, terrible for our cells, terrible for our mitochondria, our hormones, our DNA, just so many different things. So get these vegetable oils out of your diet.
Yeah, it's amazing too, I think, how common they are. If you go to a grocery store and start looking at the ingredients, it's almost, I don't know, it feels like 8 out of 10 maybe items that I pick up that aren't just like real whole foods have some sort of vegetable oil in them. And whenever I do see it, I've tried to immediately put it back. That's been one of the biggest rules that I've implemented in my own life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if you go to, I guess even at a Whole Foods, but especially if you're going to, a Walmart or a Publix or just your average grocery store, I'd say, yeah, 8 and 10, 9 and 10 products are going to contain these vegetable oils because they're so cheap. They're so incredibly cheap. So, of course, companies are going to use them to cut corners, bring down their costs and maximize profit. So unfortunately, when they're putting this ingredient into their products, they're not thinking about your health. They're thinking about how much money they can make.
Yeah, exactly. I remember we talked about vegetable oils early on, and one of the videos you recommended watching was, I think, canola oil, how canola oil is made. It is disgusting if you go and watch that video of how it's actually processed. And if you compare that to something like olive oil or avocado oil, where there's way fewer steps to create the actual oil, and it's a much more natural process as compared to canola or other vegetable oils.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone just messaged me the other day and they said, Kyle, my parents will not switch the oils that they cook with. They're still using vegetable oil. They're still using canola oil. What do I do? I said, show them the video on YouTube of how canola oil is made. And then they'll switch.
Yes.
So
you can't watch that and be like, yeah, I want more of that in my body.
If there's anyone out there listening to this and you're, whether it's your parents or your significant other, whatever it may be, and they refuse to switch oils, show them this video, literally how canola oil is made on YouTube. And Kevin also brought up a good point there. Olive oil and avocado oil are going to be much, much better options. And this is what you should look for when you turn over the ingredient, or when you turn over the package and look at the ingredient list. But the thing is, these oils like olive oil and avocado oil, they still actually contain these polyunsaturated fats. But first of all, they're in much smaller amounts. And our body actually needs polyunsaturated fats, but the amount in avocado and olive oil is much lower. And also, olive oil and avocado oil also contain antioxidants. So any oxidation that occurs in these oils is basically offset by the antioxidants in these better for you oils like olive oil and avocado oil. With the vegetable oils, they're processed and refined so much that if there were even any antioxidants to begin with, all of that is completely gone. So you almost have with these better for you oils, olive oil and avocado oil, you almost have a little bit of protection there due to the antioxidants in them.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And I feel like you've used an analogy before for polyunsaturated fats. That's kind of an abstract concept for someone that doesn't necessarily have a ton of information. Yeah. You solidified it with an example I really liked, a train and how the different tracks are connected. Do you mind explaining that part again?
Yeah. So when we think about polyunsaturated fats, we can think of a train, and say polyunsaturated fats, there's a lot of space in between each train, so it's very unstable. When it comes to a turn, each of those trains are kind of wobbling. They're not stable, and that's how we can think of polyunsaturated fats. Now, we can look at the other two types of fats, which are monounsaturated fats and saturated fats. Monounsaturated fats, we can think there's a little bit less space in between those trains, so they are a little bit more stable. Specifically with the oils, more stable when exposed to heat or pressure or light or oxygen or anything like that. They're more stable. And then saturated fats is going to be basically there's no space in between these trains. They are perfectly stuck together, and when they're making these turns, they are all just basically staying perfectly close to each other and extremely stable. And that is why ultimately my favorite type of oil or fat to cook with is going to be a saturated fat because it's the most stable when you expose it to heat. So we talked about olive oil and avocado oil being the better options. Those are monounsaturated fats, but the best options, in my opinion, are going to be these saturated fats. So things like ghee, butter, beef tallow, and coconut oil are probably the best.
Those are the most stable ones that you'll be able to find on the market.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then you also mentioned too in the beginning of this section here for rule 1 that there's one exception to the rule. What is that one exception?
Yeah. So there's an oil out there. It's called organic expeller pressed high oleic sunflower oil. I know it's a lot of words. Sometimes it'll just show up as organic sunflower oil on the package, but this is like kind of my one exception to the rule because the fatty acid profile of this sunflower oil is completely different than all of your other vegetable oils, your canola, sunflower, safflower, whatever it may be, the conventional oils. So if I turn over a package and I see organic expeller pressed meaning that it's not extracted using chemicals, it's basically cold pressed, similar to something like olive oil or avocado oil may be processed. And high oleic, meaning that the fatty acid profile of this oil is actually going to contain a lot of oleic acid. And don't worry about exactly what that means. Basically, avocado oil and olive oil also contain a lot of oleic acid. So the fatty acid profile of this specific sunflower oil is going to be very similar to an avocado or olive oil. So that's my one exception to the rule. If I do see that oil, I say, okay, that's good to go. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's one of the most common questions that I think you get on the Simple Mills branding is that they use that type of oil, and everyone's always thrown off by it because it's like, wait a second, is this a vegetable oil that they're using? Because I thought I'm supposed to avoid that, but no, this is the one area where if you see that, it's okay to consume that type of oil.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Perfect. So that's easy. I'm with you so far. We're following rule 1. Let's move on to rule 2. What is your second rule when it comes to healthy grocery store shopping?
Rule number 2 is going to be replace the refined sugar with natural sugar or natural sweetener. So first of all, the USA consumes 33% of the world's sugar. And most of this is going to be refined sugar. Just look at, similar to what we said about the vegetable oils, look at any 10 products at the grocery store, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 of them are going to contain refined sugar. And when I say refined sugar, I mean things like cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, very popular one, agave. A lot of people think that's a healthy sweetener. I would not consider that a healthy sweetener. Brown sugar, and yeah, cane sugar, or if it just says sugar, it's most likely refined.
Yeah. So those definitely stand out as very popular. Why is it that we would want to avoid those few sugar options?
These are heavily processed. I mean, they're heavily refined, heavily processed. So any vitamins and minerals that were there in the first place is being completely stripped away, and they're putting sugar into these processed foods purely to basically get you addicted to them, keep eating them, keep coming back for more, and ultimately, so the company can make more money. We've talked about a lot of topics with this podcast, but we always say it always comes back to the money, and it's the same case for vegetable oil and same case for refined sugar here.
Yeah, exactly. It is addicting. Like, you don't realize it until you really start to understand how much of it you're consuming, and then if you try to get rid of it or remove it from your diet, it's almost like you have this itch, this craving to consume some of these sugars. It's honestly kind of crazy that it exists this way. But I guess with those sugars there, all of those that you mentioned, those will show up directly on the nutrition label?
Yep, that'll show up in the ingredient list, yes.
In the ingredient list, yep.
Yeah.
And then will it show up as an added sugar? I think we've talked about this before. Is it like a normal sugar or an added sugar for those?
All of those will be added sugars, yeah. The only time it'll show up as a natural sugar if it's from fruit. So if it's from dates or bananas or strawberries or anything like that, then that'll show up as natural sugar, and that's perfectly okay. Natural sugar is completely different from this refined sugar. Natural sugar is going to have all those vitamins and minerals in them. It's going to have the fiber with it. It's basically the way nature intended it to be with these fruits that are naturally sweet. Those are perfectly okay. It's the refined sugar that you want to stay away from.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And then there's also another category of sweeteners that I've seen you talk about before. Aspartame is definitely the ones that stands out to me. I think it's in Diet Coke maybe. There's always hot debates on whether aspartame is that bad for you. What's your thoughts on that and others like that?
Yeah, I say avoid it. I mean, you're right. There is a lot of debate. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of back and forth. But I think there's a lot of studies that are clear that show that these artificial sweeteners, which is what Kevin is talking about here, aspartame, sucralose, asulfame potassium, those are going to be the most common. Sucralose and asulfame potassium are so common in protein powders, pre-workouts, all of those sort of products, and they contain no calories, so that's kind of the marketing behind them. No sugar, no calories. But first of all, they've been shown to contribute to weight gain by still encouraging sugar cravings. It's still sending a signal to your brain saying that you're consuming something sweet. But the main problem I have with these artificial sweeteners is that they've been shown to alter our microbiome and our specifically in our gut microbiome and the enzymes in our gut, which have a whole host of negative effects, but specifically on digestion, blood sugar regulation, and even our metabolism. So a lot of problems kind of stem from gut issues or microbiome dysfunction or dysregulation, and these artificial sweeteners are not helping that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we're two great examples of gut issues. Both have Crohn's disease, both have trouble digesting certain foods. It would be no surprise if someone told me one of the reasons was because we were consuming these types of artificial sweeteners, refined sugars as kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, they're hiding in a lot of snacks and, like I said, protein powders, pre-workouts, that sort of thing. So keep an eye out for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing too. You think you're having something healthy with a protein shake or something like that, and it's riddled with some of these ingredients that you'd want to avoid. So I guess then the question is, instead of these red flags that we should be avoiding, what kind of sweeteners are you looking for as green flags when you're looking at an ingredient list?
Yeah. So we want to look for unrefined sugar. So I'd say at the top of the list is going to be fruit. Like I said, dates is commonly used as a sweetener nowadays, which I absolutely love. But other types of unrefined sugars, like coconut sugar, is unrefined. It's going to have some minerals in there. Maple syrup is a fantastic one. Raw honey. And when you're buying honey, make sure you specifically look for raw honey. That just means that it's unpasteurized. It's not heated to high temperatures. There's a lot of honey out there that is going to be pasteurized, which means it is heated to high temperatures, which means, unfortunately, all the beneficial compounds in there, the antioxidants, the vitamins, the minerals, the polyphenols, all of these different things are going to be damaged when they're heated. So specifically look for raw honey. Those are going to be my favorite unrefined sweeteners. If you want something that is low carb or low sugar, maybe you're following a keto diet or something like that, my favorite sweeteners there are going to be stevia, monk fruit, and erythritol. Those are the three best for sure, most natural, least processed sweeteners.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the ones that certainly stand out. I would also say too, just like consuming some of these or purchasing these better alternatives, the best alternatives of sweeteners individually and adding them to your own food also makes a huge difference. Like personally, I love just consuming dates on their own. Maybe I'll put a little bit of almond butter on them, but I think that's such a great treat. Like you don't have to go out necessarily and find a processed food with these best sweeteners. You can make your own. Or I know you love using honey or maple
Yeah.
syrup in different ways. So I think that's also another key unlock is just using these ingredients on your own.
Yeah, I just bought this maple syrup from Whole Foods. It was local. It's from Charlotte, which is a few hours from Raleigh where we are. But I noticed it was a local maple syrup. It looked good, and I was like, okay, let me give this a shot. It is the best maple syrup that I have ever had. It is delicious, and I'm just like, this is a fantastic sweetener alternative. It is literally amazing. Like this is what we should be using as a sweetener. Like you said, I mean, make your own dessert recipe and use these natural sweeteners. I also just bought. I'm just thinking of all the desserts that I've been having. I just bought these date coconut rolls from Publix last night. I love them. I've only ever seen them at Publix. But it's just dates and coconut. It's a fantastic dessert. It totally satisfies my sweet tooth. And yeah, they're delicious.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception is that healthy eating tastes bad. Specifically, healthy desserts taste bad. I think people tend to think like avocado ice cream. Like that does not sound good. I don't know
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
is into that. Some people are, of course, but you can make great desserts with healthy, better for you ingredients. So it's certainly possible.
Yeah. Well, also one more note there that I just thought of. All of this processed food that's in your typical grocery store, it has ingredients. It has these sweeteners. It has these natural and artificial flavors. It has MSG. It has all of these ingredients that have really hijacked our taste buds. And someone that is used to all of these highly ultra processed foods, they may have one of these things that I just talked about. Maybe they try some dates or these date coconut rolls or this maple syrup, and maybe it doesn't taste good to them because their taste buds are so hijacked by these big food corporations. They know how to get us addicted to these products. So if you are someone that consumes a lot of these processed foods and wants to consume more real foods, just know that with time, your taste buds are going to adjust. They're going to get back to basically where they originally were, and you'll start to enjoy real foods again. I know I have. The more I mean, this sounds weird. The more I live, the more time goes on. I even the healthy processed foods, I consume less and less processed food and more just real whole foods. Nowadays, if I want dessert, I'll have an orange, and that'll totally satisfy my sweet tooth. These sumo oranges. You've had these before.
Yeah.
These are amazing. That's like candy. Like I eat this, I'm like, this is amazing. Like it fills me up, makes me feel good. So just know that your taste buds may be hijacked by these big food corporations, and with time, they will return back to normal as you continue to eat more real food.
Yeah, that's a great point too. People get thrown off when they have one healthy food and they're like, "Nope, that's not for me. I can't do it." Give it some time. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to adjust all at once. Gradually incorporate it into your diet, but definitely give it some time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. All right, I like it. That is rule number 2. Get rid of those refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, and replace them with natural ingredients. Let's move on to rule 3. What's rule number 3 for healthy grocery store shopping?
Number 3 is going to be swapping out the refined. I see a theme here. Swap out the refined sugar, go for natural sugars. Swap out the refined or enriched wheat flour and go for whole grain wheat flour or some gluten-free flours, which we'll talk about in a second here. So why do we want to do this? Well, let's break down what a whole grain contains. A whole grain contains basically 3 things: the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. And when I say whole grain, I mean examples of this is going to be, whole wheat flour. Oats are technically a whole grain. Brown rice is technically a whole grain, although we'll talk about brown rice versus white rice in a second here. But these refined grains have been milled is the proper term for it, and this basically means that they removed the bran and the germ. So all that's left is the endosperm, and there's basically no nutrients there. Same thing with the sugar. They're refining it. There's no nutrients. The bran and the germ, which is what they've removed, is what contains all of the vitamins and minerals, the fiber, the like I said, vitamins and minerals, iron, B vitamins, so many different things that can be beneficial to us. We are basically taking it, stripping it away, and just getting something that's just the endosperm. And it basically, they do this because it gives it a finer texture and also improves the shelf life as well. So if you look at your average bread, 99% of them are just going to be wheat flour. If you see wheat flour, if you see unbleached enriched flour, that's the same thing. And like I said, one of the main reasons they do this is to extend the shelf life so that bread will last forever.
Yeah, this is a business decision that companies are making here to go through this process, and
Let's
it
come
makes
back to the money.
money. I guess it makes sense because bread naturally doesn't probably last all too long. If you have bread going bad on the shelves every week, that's a lot of wasted food. And so, in order to combat this, companies have to make decisions. Do they increase price or do they reduce the quality of the product? And unfortunately, a lot have chosen to reduce the actual quality of the product you're consuming. So I guess instead of these enriched or unbleached wheat flours, is there something better that we should be looking for?
Yeah, so whole wheat flour is where I would start. If it's whole grains or whole wheat flour, that's going to be a much better option. Also, you can look for gluten-free flours, almond flour, coconut flour, uh, brown rice flour, white rice flour. These are all going to be good options, especially if you're sensitive to gluten. The one flour that I've been looking closer into recently, that I've been learning more about, is einkorn flour. Have you ever heard of
Never
this
heard of it.
before? Our
No.
mom has used this in certain recipes. I know the waffles that she makes. She's been making them with this einkorn flour. At first I thought it was acorn, but it's not acorn. It's einkorn.
A-N corn?
EINKORN.
Oh, okay.
Einkorn flour. And this is the only, it is wheat flour, but it's the only wheat flour that hasn't been hybridized. So basically it hasn't been messed with. It's in a natural form, and it contains much less gluten, and is normally much better tolerated by people that are sensitive to gluten. And again, this is going to be a whole grain as well, so it's going to contain a lot of those vitamins, minerals, B vitamins. It's higher in protein as well. So if you're looking for a kind of a wheat flour alternative that still tastes good and very similar to wheat flour, look for einkorn flour. The brand that makes this is going to be Jovial. That's the only brand I've seen that makes this. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I've been learning about recently.
Yeah, Incorn, and I will attest for the taste. The waffles that our mom makes are delicious.
Yeah,
So you
they're
can't tell
amazing.
that this isn't like not a quote unquote normal flour. And I guess the not hybridized is interesting. It's almost like single origin kind of equivalent, like we talk
Yeah.
about with coffee. It being just from one source, probably more reliable, not getting mixed with something that you don't really know is in there, not going through that hybridization process. But that is good to see. What about rice? You talked about it a little bit. What should I order for rice when I'm getting my Chipotle bowl? Brown rice, white rice, what's better?
If you asked me this a year ago, I would have said brown rice, because if you look at white rice is basically refined. It's taking out that outer part of the brown rice and it's stripping away some of the fiber and the vitamins and minerals there. But what I've been learning about more recently is that white rice specifically is a lot easier to digest. And also, brown rice is a lot higher in arsenic, which is the thing you have to be careful of when you are purchasing or going to Chipotle and having rice. White rice contains much less arsenic, so I would say again, there's kind of a exception to the rule. Same thing with the vegetable oils. The exception to the rule here, in my opinion, is going to be go for white rice instead of brown rice. Ideally, if you want to take it even one step further, I'd say go for sprouted white rice, because this can um, again remove some of the heavy metals that may be in there and also just make it easier to digest.
Yep. And then for anyone that hasn't heard of it before, sprouted, I'll try and give some background, but I believe, Kyle, correct me, it's when the actual seed sprouts slightly, which makes it easier to digest on your body, as
Mhm.
well as has some additional vitamins and minerals that are contained in it. Is that right?
Yep. Basically, by sprouting it, you're almost unlocking some of the nutrients that are there
Hmm.
and making it easier to absorb those nutrients and easier to digest.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's the gold standard. I guess the with white rice, is that something that you consume on a regular basis, or do you avoid
I
it?
I don't consume white rice. The main reason I'd say someone would consume white rice is, I mean, it tastes good, obviously. Make your own homemade Chipotle bowl. That's great. But one of the main reasons is people do it as a carb source. And recently, I've just been consuming my carbs from fruit and honey and maple syrup. So that's just kind of preference for me.
Mhm.
Um, and those types of foods are, for me, easier to digest than rice, so I typically stay away from it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like most people have rice as, oh, I need something that's going to fill me up,
Right.
and if maybe I'm not having enough protein or something else.
Right. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
All right, let's move on here. Rule number 4. Those are the top 3 rules. Those are rules. Those are really the main 3 things you should look for and really pay close attention to when you're at the grocery store. But rule number 4, I'm going to pass this one off to Kevin. Kevin, what is rule number 4?
Yeah. So rule number 4 is one that you may have heard before, but it's buy foods on the outside of the grocery store first. This is something that a lot of people talk about, but it is extremely important, and I think it's an underrated rule. Kyle, you know how milk is always in the back of the grocery store? Do you know why that is?
No. So, so
So it's actually
so they make you walk through the store to get there?
Yeah, exactly. It's all done by design. So
Mm,
everything, the layout of the grocery store is very intentional, even if it doesn't feel that way. They
mm,
want you to be in there as long as possible, and they want you to purchase as much as possible. And almost everyone purchases milk. It's one of the most common purchases that people make. And so they put it at the very back in order for you to go through all of the other aisles to get there.
mm.
So that is a little bit of a pro tip there. But either way, you want to fill your cart with the outside foods first. That's going to be your fruits, your vegetables, your protein, and your dairy. Those are the kind of areas that you want to focus. And then, if you do have leftover budget, then go through the aisles, determine what snacks you want, what other kind of ingredients that you need for whatever you're cooking that week. But I
Yep.
would say here too to prioritize snacks that are satiating. I think this is a place that people get lost when they're in the grocery store. So personally, I try to get a lot of beef sticks. I like to try and just have a chips and guac is a good snack. That good fat from the
Yep.
avocados. I mentioned
Yep.
it before, but I love almond butter and dates. That's a good filling snack. So the more you can fill your cart with these types of satiating snacks, the less likely you are to grab the not good chips or the bad snacks that are taunting you as you're walking through the grocery store.
Yeah, you summed that up perfectly. Focus, especially when you're looking at snacks. Focus on snacks with high quality protein and fats in them that'll actually fill you up. But just reiterating what you said, shop the outside of the grocery store, go for that high quality animal protein, go for the fruits and vegetables, and then go into the inner aisles to get those better for you snacks using those first 3 rules that we talked about. And then
Mhm.
also, your healthy fats like olive oil, avocado oil, maybe you're buying some ghee, butter, beef tallow. Also, if you want to buy some white rice, maybe it's even sprouted white rice in the
Yeah.
inner aisles as well. Some sardines will also be in the inner aisles, but for a majority of the grocery shopping that you're doing, it should be in those outer aisles, like you said, and super simple but super effective.
Yeah. Obviously, you spend a lot of time at the grocery store, and most of it is probably for content purposes. But when you are shopping for yourself, you're not there filming videos or anything. How often do you spend time going through the actual aisles?
Oh, barely any time.
Yeah, close to
Yeah,
zero.
no. Close to 0. Yeah, I'm going to the store, I'm getting my fruits and vegetables. I'm going to get my meat, eggs, maybe some dairy products, maybe some kefir or something like that. And then I'll maybe go to the inner aisles to get exactly what we just talked about. I'll grab some ghee, maybe I'm buying some avocado or olive oil, maybe some raw honey or maple syrup, but that's really it. Maybe once in a while I'll buy a healthy snack if I see something new that I want to try, or
Mhm.
for the most part, it's prioritizing those real whole foods. And like I said, more and more I'm eating real whole foods, and just craving those processed foods less and less.
Yeah, yeah, it's like your body's adjusting to back to what it was originally craving.
Absolutely. And with that, it takes time. Like if you're listening to this thing, oh man, I want to be like Kyle. I just want to eat real whole foods too. Don't like, as much as I want to say, yeah, go for it. Like it takes time. I started really paying attention to my diet and eating healthy in 2018. So what? It's been 6 years almost. And
Yeah.
I'm just now getting to the point of where I'm really consuming real whole foods. Basically, for all the foods that I consume are just real whole foods.
Mhm.
It takes time. Don't rush it.
Yeah, exactly. Prioritize what's important first. These 5 rules are gonna be a big way that you can help yourself in getting those real whole foods. But yeah, same here. We're 34 weeks into the podcast year, and I've made a ton of changes in these past 34 weeks, but by no means am I perfect. It's continuing to implement these rules into my life.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that leads us perfectly into rule number 5, which
Yeah.
is Kevin.
Rule 5 is plan ahead. Plan
Exactly.
ahead before you go to the grocery store. One of the biggest mistakes people make is impulse buying. Oh, yeah, at the cash register, you know what's there? Junk food, candy.
Junk. Yep.
Yeah, all the trash is there at the actual checkout. They're hoping that you grab one of those things because you want it. If you make a list and you stick to your list beforehand, you will be way better off. And kind of a pro tip here is actually making a list of the actual meals you're going to make. My wife actually does this every Sunday morning. She sits down and writes out what she's going to make for the week and then the ingredients that we need in order to make those foods. And actually, a double pro tip is if you're not a fan of making grocery lists or coming up with ideas, use ChatGPT. It's free.
Mm.
Anyone can use it. Type in your preferences into ChatGPT and it'll spit out a grocery list for you as well as different meals that you can buy based on whatever preferences you have. So when you make that list for the week, it does 2 things really. One is it's a whole lot less stressful when every night you have to figure out what you're cooking. If you have that list of what you're going to make each night, it alleviates so much stress on you and whoever else you're making dinner for. And then number 2, it also leads to a lot less, why don't we just go out tonight? And
Hmm.
then you end up
Hmm.
at a Mexican restaurant and you have a burrito and you have a bunch of chips. We're trying to avoid that as much as we
Are
can.
you,
I'm speaking
are
from
you-
experience.
that's what I was gonna. That's what I was gonna ask. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. um, it's fun and it's delicious, but I never feel good
Right.
compared to when I'm cooking my own food. So those are certainly fine to have meals outside of your own home in restaurants. but
Yeah.
just try and limit it to maybe special occasions or types of good real foods like that. But those
Yeah.
certain tips, I think, will go make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of going off that, even if you want to, save some more money when you are shopping, try to shop the sales at different stores if you do have that kind of time and can go to different stores. I'm constantly posting Whole Foods sale videos, Costco sale videos, some Aldi sale videos. So hopefully that's helpful to you and just an easy way to save more money, because I'm just making these sale videos about specifically products that fit these rules that we're talking about. So just yeah, another tip there. But I think Kevin summarized it great. Be prepared, plan ahead.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kyle's doing all the work so that you don't have to there. So just follow the guidelines that he's already putting out on Instagram and TikTok there. The other interesting note that I saw when we were doing some research here is that the average US household, which doesn't have a specific size of people associated with it, spends almost $6,000 on
Mhm.
groceries in a year, which comes out to just under $500 a month, which is a lot of money. So groceries are one of the biggest portions of everyone's budget. You have to eat, you have to purchase food. So make sure that you're using these 5 rules, and hopefully, I guess 2 things. One is you'll feel better, which will hopefully lead to less costs for medical purposes. And then 2, I think you'll actually find that you buy less food when you buy real foods because they're way more satiating. So
Mhm.
it's a win-win here if you're able to follow these rules.
Absolutely. Yeah. And go ahead and share this episode with someone that you think could benefit from these rules and from this information that we talked about here. This is basically like grocery shopping 101. This is the ultimate guide to grocery shopping and staying healthy. So if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone that you think could benefit from it. But that is going to be it for this episode. We appreciate your time, we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next week in episode 35.